I've heard all your episodes.
Welcome to the Blackcast. Christian Blatt here for another installment of the hashtag Big Blackcast Binge Week. This is our fourth of 5 episodes, and this one is not going to be accessible for everyone. This one, we're going to get into the thick of it here. We're really going to dive into Star Trek Picard, all the spoilers and everything, but first, let's say hello to part of our panel that is already assembled. The one, the only, Mr. Mark Hunt, a.k.a. Rafe Gutman, coming to us from what looks like the storeroom at a KB Toys. And, of course, appreciating that, pacing in his childhood bedroom where probably many a pace has happened, Mr. Thomas J. Kelly.
Woo! Hello, America. And by the way, too, talking of not to compete with KB Toys, but I do have a vintage Cabbage Patch Kid and horse up there.
Excellent. Now, if you stand, we're not really going to be able to see.
Yes, sir.
So.
That's right. You're sharing the video. Forgot.
That's right. Yeah, the video's going up. And showing up right now, the one, the only Mr. Jason Blair. Hello, sir.
Oh, my God.
Hey.
On cue.
See, this is why you need to give me a star date instead of using this old Earth information.
Yeah, I know. He thought this was for PM instead of AM his time. Yeah, so that's my fault.
So,
yeah, you know what? From here on, I don't even know what star date this is. I'm sure there's people who could figure out what an Earth date of 2020 would be in star dates. But
well, you've got the original series with the 4-digit star date, and then the next gen was the 5 digits. So
yeah, so would this be a 3-digit star date?
I have no idea.
But we haven't had first contact yet, so I guess there are no star dates. So,
I used to play the Star Trek role-playing game where they would say, just to be the game master and make it authentic, use the last 2 digits of the year. So our star date in Star Trek, the role-playing game terms, would be star date 200520 and or 07. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Captain's log, stardate 200507. Here I am on the Blackcast that no one will listen to.
Tom, when you used to play the Star Trek role-playing game, was there a lot of fighting as to which one of the girls playing got to be Uhura?
Oh, believe me, we were so far away from meeting girls. But
which edition was it? Was it the FASA one?
It was the FASA one, yes.
Which is what? And I see that for college loans. What?
Yes,
the FAFSA one. All right.
There we go. Our first Stardate bell. Well, this is the best thing about when you're going to do a whole show on Star Trek and you get some of the best Star Trek minds we've ever had on the Blackcast. It's really easy to get out nerded, and I just did by both of you. So
FAFSA? Yes.
Yeah, just the fact that there was an addition. Like I played the Marvel Superheroes role-playing game, but really just the first edition. I never even really dove into D&D. But the Marvel Superheroes role-playing game, I'm like, well, yeah, this is like comic books, and I'm all in on that.
That was TSR who did make Dungeons and Dragons, so I had that one too.
My brother's 5 years older. He was all in on D&D, and I don't know, maybe my mom just preferred Marvel Superheroes, but whatever the case. So we're here, and we're going to really dive into Star Trek Picard. Before we did that, I thought it would be fun if each of us shared sort of, and it doesn't have to be your earliest Star Trek memory, but sort of an indication of how important it was to your childhood. So for me, I've talked about this on the Blackcast before. My mom made sure we got a VCR, Christmas 1984. And Tom, you'll understand this. Every weeknight at midnight on WPIX Channel 11 in New York, she recorded reruns of Star Trek because she wanted to see them. She hadn't seen them in years, but mostly so that she could get the Trouble with Tribbles on tape. And that's when you realize that there's 79 episodes, but they didn't play them in any kind of order. They would repeat. God forbid there was a power outage, so you missed one. So it took like a year and a half to finally get to see Trouble with Tribbles, but she had promised me Trouble with Tribbles, and she's like, this is so good, you're going to like it. But I also remember seeing Wrath of Khan in the theater down at the Jersey Shore near Long Beach Island. So I definitely saw Star Trek 2 in the theater because Star Trek was a huge part of my mom's life. When she was in high school, the original series was on. And she would have like boyfriends and dates and stuff, but Friday night date was, well, we're going to watch Star Trek. So, and I think when you're the girl in the relationship, you can dictate that. Mark, did you have a lot of dating where it was like, well, we're going to watch all 4 chapters of the latest Tom Baker Doctor Who serial? Or do you think that that didn't really happen so much?
No, it didn't happen at all. No.
Uh,
Doctor Who was early. I introduced it early on, and it was quickly cut off.
But by all women, all women folk, yeah. For me, Star Trek was like as nerdy as I got. I was put off by early Doctor Who when I would see the reruns on PBS, and Star Wars was a little bit more mainstream. Like the cool kids would always like Star Wars, but and for those watching on YouTube, there was just what is that? Is that a 12-inch Tom Baker with the
About 8-inch.
What? How long?
8-inch.
8-inch. Pardon me. That shows how disappointed my wife is. Mark, what is one of the earliest Star Trek memories for you, sir?
Well, I grew up Tulsa, Oklahoma, and so right around, after Star Wars came out, this would have been late 70s. I started getting into science fiction, like most Gen X my age, and our local TV station used to show, right after the nightly news, they would show Star Trek. And in the summers, they would show it Monday through Friday. So it was always kind of a treat. You'd get to, because I always had to go, you'd go to bed for school, but in the summers, you got to stay up. So staying up after, my parents went to bed, the news would be over, and me and my brother would sit in front of the TV and watch Monday through Friday, watch classic Star Trek. And I loved it. Something I looked forward to. During the school year, they'd only show it on Friday nights. I guess they were really mindful, of kids. But during the summer,
so you're saying this was a different time that
different
television
time,
programmers were mindful of kids' schedule.
Yes, they didn't. This is pre-VCR. So I was a big fan and then I remember when the motion picture came out and going to McDonald's, and this was one of the very, very first Happy Meals, was the Star Trek, the motion picture themed Happy Meal.
And did those come with the glasses?
I remember getting this little, it was like a little plastic watch like thing.
Okay.
You strapped it to your wrist, except instead of a watch, it was like a little container. You'd pop it up and you could put little things in it and snap it down. It was real cheap, but had little stickers on it for Star Trek, the motion picture. So, once I discovered Star Wars and started branching out, the next thing on the list was Star Trek.
So was that the watch picture. Was that the watch that Stephen Collins would use to spy on underage girls? Is that what that was for, or was it?
Might have been.
Sorry, Tom. When you've got a joke burning a hole in your pocket, you got to tackle whoever's trying to get it.
I was thinking the same thing, a Stephen Collins toy joke, but yeah.
I almost Googled Stephen Collins because I'm like, what the hell was Decker's name? And then it came to me. But what were you going to say about motion picture?
You hit the other thing about jokes is know what you can follow. Mine was going to be. The McDonald's integration was so intense, the 1701 refit was supposed to have a McDonald's on the rec deck.
That would have been great. I do think they get glasses for that. I've seen Star Trek motion picture glasses, I think. I don't think we ever had them. We had TV trays. That was something that my mom got, was Star Trek the motion picture TV trays. Jason, what about your earliest Star Trek memory?
I was a little late to the game. I think, I watched the movies as a kid. We were one of the first families in our neighborhood to have a VCR, so it was really cool that we could go down and get movies. And so I think we watched, the Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock and stuff like that. They weren't really that special to me. I will tell you that the time that really hit me was when I was in, I think it was 9th grade, was when The Undiscovered Country came out, and a friend of mine was just so pumped up to go see it, and I was like, I'll go see it, and sat there, and I thought it was so smart, like the whole Cold War reference and it was just such a smart movie that's when I really started to pay attention to Star Trek. So that was around the 4th, 5th season of Next Generation.
Yeah, I think that's 91. So yeah, that
and where I lived in Terre Haute, Indiana, we only had 3 TV stations, and Fox had already launched, so they were running Fox shows in the evening on the ABC affiliate. And so there wasn't a lot of room for syndicated shows. And the Next Generation was on, I think at 12:30 at night, after Arsenio Hall and Nia Peebles' Dance Machine or something like that. So I started recording them and, really liked it. And then I went back and, they started, Suncoast Motion Picture Company started selling the videotapes. And so I remember picking up, the earlier seasons, a few of them that people told me were good. And I was like, wow, this really sucked at first. But then finally got caught up. And it's funny, then I went to a convention and I realized that I'm a different type of fan than a lot of fans are. Like, I can tell you that, like, which episodes Ron Moore wrote and, like, who Rick Berman's executive assistant is. I'm really nerdy into it from, like, the production side of things. But then I went to the conventions and I realized people are more into, like, the backstory on the guy sitting at the third table over in 10 Forward. And, they have all this, like, fan fiction stuff. I've never really gotten into fan fiction, extended universe type stuff. I'm just really into the production aspect.
If there was anything that you felt like dipped into copyright law or trademarks or patents, that's what would interest you the most, probably, right?
Yeah. And it is very interesting that they allow unsolicited submissions from fans. That's
true.
Unheard of from a copyright perspective.
It's still unheard of. Yeah.
Yeah. So that really fascinated me, which I said that's probably what most people, that's not their interest in Star Trek. But I'd be like, how does that even work? You're getting an unsolicited submission. And I'm like, I'm not even in college yet, and let alone, like, law school. Yeah. But I guess
and one final thing, who did you go to college with?
Oh yeah, Sirach Lofton was in several of my classes at UCLA.
That's right.
He used to play basketball a lot against Jaleel White, actually. And,
so Urkel and Little Cisco went to school with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was fun. They were really cool guys. Like I think I took a few classes with them. So I mean, the first class, you don't see them that much, but they're there enough to get the grade, I guess. So
Tom, were you interning at Conan when Jaleel White was on? I don't know if that was when you were there. I think it might have been before you were there, because he was there, but he was like trying to, when I was interning, he was there and he was trying to put forth there's the smooth character that he has on that show, Stefan Urkel, and that's who he's trying to be in real life. So blast from the past, talent executive Tanya Addy, he used to be like, oh, thanks, girl. And it was just like, dude, you're Steve Urkel. It's not working. No one's convinced. And but anyway, this is not the Urkel cast. Tom, what about you? How long has the Federation been running through your blood? And we've talked about this before. Your AOL Instant Message had 1701 at the end of it, didn't it?
It still does. My email address, if anyone wants to write me a note on my email that I check only once a month, TJK1701. I've used 1701 as the name of my production company, 1701 Productions.
Sure.
I have my own angle on Star Trek. I mean, first I fell into it, if we're getting sentimental, it was with Mom and Dad on a trip to DC. It was one of like 3 vacations we ever took, and it rained. So
of course.
So it rained. We went back to the hotel, and on the pay-per-view, it was Star Trek 4. I had hated Star Trek before that, but realized I grew up with a black and white TV set till 1987. So I think a lot of the wonder of Star Trek was lost on me until I could see it in color, never mind with movie special effects. And I think from there, that was also, I think, right before Next Generation started. One of the first movies I saw by myself was Star Trek V.
I'm so sorry.
I will stand by this, that Star Trek V was a more enjoyable experience for me than watching 8 episodes of Picard.
Well, 10 episodes, but yeah. And by the way, I always bag on Star Trek V. I saw it in the theater 3 times. One of them was a drive-in. It was a double bill with Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, but I still saw it in the theater 3 times. So,
and I would argue that Star Trek V holds up better than some of the other Treks. That it's not as bad comparatively. It's not as bad, and it was a great. This is not my line, and I don't know who is the source to cite, but there's a great line that was a review of Star Trek V 20 years later, and the line was, loving Star Trek means understanding that half of it is crap. And that's somewhere slightly above that. By the way,
the hotline's ringing. I think that's Shatner asking if he can direct another movie, because he's like, oh, you liked this? How about I reboot Tech War? Would you like to see that, Tom? Obviously.
That phone call was a Chase fraud alert, because everybody's figured out all 4 of our ATM passcodes right now.
Well, I do want to look. We could talk about Star Trek as a whole all day. And Mark, I saw before when we were speaking, you had a Jean-Luc action figure pop up. I assume he's somewhere nearby. Now, is there a whole expansion pack for the Picard series? Can you get a Raffi? Can you get a Dr. Agnes? Can we get all the different emergency medical holograms?
As a gift set?
Yeah. Do we have the whole gift set? We don't have that yet, do we?
No, but action figures are kind of just anymore. You can't go into a store and buy action figures that much anymore. Maybe Marvel. I mean, they don't even do Star Wars anymore. So action figures nowadays are like right behind me here, like $100 premium format figures for people.
Well, no, I mean, you have to keep in mind that Disney owns Star Wars, and if you go into Target, you will definitely find action figures. It's not the level, it's not like the lines like they used to do for collectors, but they will put little plastic crap in a box and have kids pay $5. They will.
But will the box be labeled JL? That's what I want to know.
Oh God, that's another. I mean, that's another
JL.
Yeah, the JL. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna each take turns and talk about just sort of big picture overall. Mark, you went first before, so let's have you go first again. Just overall thoughts. We'll get into some of the more specifics. Just a big picture on Star Trek Picard, 10-episode series on CBS All Access. Thanks to Sir Patrick Stewart, people were able to watch it free after the fact, after everybody was about to cancel the subscription anyway. And Tom, do you have something you want to share from your phone?
Before we start, just to show how Jason is my friend that I've never met before. my phone password 1701 and then an extra 01 at the end.
There you go.
You know me.
Everyone's getting. If you pickpocket our wallets, everybody's getting into our ATM account. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. So, Mark, overall thoughts on Star Trek Picard?
Overall, I'm probably one of the ones that actually liked it. There's a lot I would nitpick against it. The ending of the season, I definitely would nitpick. On a whole, for the most part, I enjoyed it. I think the supporting cast was kind of weak. I love seeing Patrick Stewart back. I kind of liked exploring the 24th century. Every episode, we kind of jumped around to different locations. So it was kind of nice to explore, even though it looks like a couple of them they kind of did on the cheap. So for the most part, I liked it. I liked it better than Discovery, but I definitely have a few problems with it, a lot of nitpicks with it too.
Yeah, I agree what you're talking about in terms of some of the locations. It was, okay, well, let's beam down to the Western backlot at Universal Studios. Let's just see what's going on there. I think that, one, it was great to see Jean-Luc Picard on my screen. And I said, even after the first episode, they did 10 episodes where he read the phone book in character. I would definitely watch all of them. And I'd be like, well, you know what? I got something out of that. I thought it was good at times. It was infuriating at others. On the whole, I'm like, look, it was fun that it was back. I agree with you that we hadn't gone forward in time in Star Trek since Nemesis. So like almost more than 15 years. So, cause it was all like, now we're going to go to the J.J. Abrams verse. And I know that's not what it's called. And we're going to go all the way back to Discovery. I'm like, yeah, but what about after this? So I did enjoy seeing some of that. And then some of it was just like, okay, so it's Jean-Luc in a disguise with an eye patch. There needed to be somebody in the writer's room that's like, no, okay, so like that, but not that. Like, not that thing.
Will Sterling has a line about that, right? About the no person or something.
Oh, yeah. Will Sterling, a regular on this podcast. He always talks about how a lot of times there just needs to be that one guy, usually it's like at the executive level, that's like, yeah, so look, we could do that. But instead of that, how about we try to make it, not suck? And you just need to have, everybody can't be yes men and yes women. So in general, look, it was entertaining for the most part, but there was a lot of stuff I didn't care about. I think it was really slow to start. I think if it had moved along faster and was 8 episodes, like the first one was great. And then the next 3, I'm like, that should have been 1 episode. You know, they just stretched it way too thin for me. First one, I thought the first one was great. If they had maintained that level of quality, I would have been able to, the show was so slow, I had enough time to think about how I didn't like it. You know, if your show moves fast, you don't really have time to think about it. It's like seeing Avatar for the first time. It was only afterwards that I'm like, oh, that was really not good. But while I was watching it, Jason, overall thoughts from you, and then Tom is going to rain on everybody's parade, I think. But
I think. Well, overall thoughts. First episode, I was super pumped. I mean, very first scene, seeing the Enterprise D, seeing, and it did move slow, but I was like, well, we're setting up. We're catching up on everything that's happened in 25 years. It's going to be fine. Really excited. And then all of a sudden, second, third, fourth episode, you get to this, come on, let's go. And then it just seems so rushed at the end. And we'll get to it on specific nitpicks, but I think the very end of the show, what they did with Jean-Luc really is like a slap in the face to Data's message. Data's message is, what's the point if you're not mortal and you can't die, and I want you to shut me off because that's what makes life worth living. And then it's like, okay, well, that's such a sweet ending. Now we're going to make Jean-Luc immortal, and we can just give him a body and he can live as long as we want. So, I know they did other things. So it was like, to me, the messaging at the end of it was so like, okay, well, let's just crap all over Data. So,
Sure. Yes, Tom, you seem to agree with some of that sentiment in there.
Well, no, I think first of all, what I agree with all of you guys is, starting from the beginning, I loved that first scene. It was everything I wanted it to be. I will stand by this. I think Star Trek Chateau Picard is a better show than Star Trek Picard.
Yes.
So if he's just inspecting the grapes, the grapes and like, oh, number 1, you had an accident. Let's clean that up. Computer, give us wee-wee pads.
You're making a joke, but I enjoyed seeing him, like where his retirement looked like. I enjoyed the wine Romulans.
By the way, I also love that they were like, yeah, we spend a lot of fucking money on this set. So his ready room is going to be the same set, and we're just going to have everybody be okay with it because we are not building another set.
No, and that's what I liked. I mean, I think that set captured what I loved about the show and what I wanted it to be. It was high quality. It was well lit. It was connected to something that wasn't a starship. Summarizing what went wrong is, creatively speaking, and this is a complaint I've had on the Blackcast before, is that somebody let Brent Spiner and Patrick Stewart into the writer's room on this. And that, quite frankly, is what tanked the last 2 Next Generation movies, if not the last 3. Well,
First Contact was the good one.
That's peak Trek right there.
Yeah, so, and Insurrection was just dull, and I was like, oh, it's a mediocre 2-part episode that they put on the big screen, but then Nemesis was just like, yikes, I just had a lot of bad feelings after that.
Well, and to Jason's point, what happened, the reason why they shit on Data in the end is Brent Spiner said, oh, I want a proper death scene. And it was the same lame ass, oh, look at me, I'm dying, I'm talking slower. He's great at playing characters. He's not a great actor.
He starts singing Daisy at the end. That would be funny.
Definitely agree. But yeah, and it's like, look, the inclusion of Brent Spiner is great fan service, and I was excited. But it's like, so how exactly in Jean-Luc's dream did Data get so fat?
See, was that him getting fat, or was that digital technology to soften him up?
They softened it, but did you notice that he was wearing the turtleneck uniform? Because let's just say that that androids apparently do synthetic life does actually age, and
You know what I was
age.
hoping that would be? I was hoping they would get the guys who made Jar Jar Binks. I mean, you could have no. I mean, and actually, it's funny. I am friends with the father of the guy who played Jar Jar Binks,
Who
and
did the voice.
did not know that.
Ahmed Best.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. His dad is a great cameraman at ABC and a very kind man, and his aunt is my union rep at SAG-AFTRA. So from here on in, Jar Jar Binks, my favorite character in Star Wars, because I know it hurts real feelings. So. Anyway, but Jason made some great points. I actually didn't mind it moving slow. My problem was it started trying too hard. And I think the big problem is one, and it's funny, I have, I'll share them later. I have notes from TrekCore.com, and it's notes that Stewart gave on Star Trek Insurrection. And it's lines like, we need to roughen him up. We need Picard to be less of a philosopher and more of an action hero. You know, and you could see that influence again on Star Trek Picard. He wants it to be Star Trek and not Star Trek. He doesn't want it to be on a starship. Starfleet's going to be a little darker now. It's just, you know what it was? It became, you knew where it was going after the first episode. And I spent 9 episodes thinking, they're not going to do that. And they did that. It was just so easy. You knew it was the Romulans from like minute 3.
Yeah, of course.
So, you hoped that what I loved about the first 3 episodes were it was the Romulans became an allegory for Syrian refugees. And it's like, oh, we should be nicer to Romulans. They're not the bad guy. And by the end of episode 10, it was, no, Romulans are the bad guys. It just...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just because they were down on their luck doesn't mean that they're not terrorists, basically.
Yeah. So. And Kurtzman Kurtzman's not a great writer. Kurtzman's bad at writing villains. And I think he came up with a couple of great gimmicks. I did not love anybody in the supporting cast. I enjoyed the first Raffi episode and kind of lost interest. Alison Pill is an awful actress. And I say this as someone who has... I thought she ruined Newsroom for me. And frankly, she wasn't even good at playing developmentally different people on Law and Order, which I remember her doing twice. So,
did you see the what is his name? Bong Joon-ho, the guy who won the Oscar. Did you see his earlier film Snowpiercer, where everybody's on a train? Because she plays a school teacher in that, and there's like a pretty amazing turn. And I had just seen that before the show started. So yeah, she's not great though. She's definitely not great. She's not a great character. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Well, and let's go slow. And you know what? I actually liked, here's my thing with Star Trek Picard. I liked the seeds they planted and did not like what they grew into. You know what? I loved episode 1 and 2. Look, I have to save this android who feels a connection to Captain Picard. And then they shoot her, and he finds her twin who doesn't have any connection to her, to him.
One thing, you made a good point, Tom. I don't want to interrupt, but you said it's not the fact that it's slow. I think the problem was when it was paced like that and you realized it was only 10 episodes, it was just like, now they're going to cram a bunch of crap at the end. It's not the fact that episode 2, 3, 4 are slow. It means, they're just going to say, okay, and ABCDY, and then just at the very last episode. And that's what happens. And you don't care about that.
Well, and to your point, I was hooked on the "Let's find Bruce Maddox" line. He was sort of a seed that was planted through different Next Generation episodes. Even if it wasn't the same actor, you felt attached to the name. And then they find Bruce Maddox, and then Dr. Girardi kills him after 2 minutes. And then we forgive Dr. Girardi for killing him after 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was definitely...
murdered.
Yeah.
Right. It's a great time to murder in the 24th, 25th century. You just okay, don't do it again.
Yeah, it's like, man, all right. But yeah, if you do that again, you're going to go into space timeout, because that's tougher than what timeout was in the 21st century. So yeah, that was just like, I kept waiting for that shoe to drop where, even if she died, it's like, all right, well, that's fitting. But then, like, nope, she's actually in a much better place. She kind of doesn't she end up like actually like together with the captain at the end, which was, by the way, like I don't know that there's ever been less heat on screen between two characters than those two.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't need that, but
I enjoyed the captain as a bit player. I enjoyed him for an episode, and then you just used the right word. There was no heat with him as an actor. Oh, I'm attached to a captain, and I had to kill him after 5 minutes in the movie.
And it wasn't a captain we knew. Like if it had been Captain Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off on the Enterprise B, then at least we'd have a connection to him. But I don't know, like really, like Raffi is the perfect embodiment of what was wrong with the show, because I didn't care about her. She grated on me every time she was in there. And then I disliked Dr. Girardi so much that it made me hate Raffi less, but just by comparison. And like the scene where she goes to visit her son and meets the pregnant wife, I'm like, I don't know that I've ever been less interested in anything, I mean, it's like, I don't know, like spying on the neighbors through their front window would be way more interesting than that. But I don't know. Mark,
what did you? Good point, Christian. Yeah. By the time they got to that, I forgot she was an alcoholic.
Yeah,
like
true.
Like that's the other thing too, is they throw a lot of spaghetti and like, hey, remember we said this and you didn't care about it 6 episodes ago? Now she has a son, and he remembers that thing that you didn't care about.
And I know on your AfterBuzz show, it's like every week it was like, we hate Raffi, we hate Raffi. Yeah, I hate her too,
it was mostly me.
But it was just like, I don't know. I hated her almost the least, which is not saying much. She's like a 2 and everybody else is the 1. What really bugged me was the captain guy. Like, is he supposed to be a badass or not? It's just because he smokes a cigar and he drops the F word all the time. So
and he plays like 4 versions of himself, sort of.
And here's an overall thing I believe is Star Trek should not have the word "fuck" used in a complete sentence. It just doesn't feel right. And whenever they do it, you could just tell they're jamming it in to get some sort of a rated R rating.
Right.
Yeah, we talked about that on the after show, and Tom, you and I talked about that during Discovery. Cadet Tilly was the first person to say "fuck" in Star Trek. Yeah,
fucking Tilly.
And I was just like, look, the swearing works in Star Trek 4 because it's for comedic effect. It's Spock trying to fit in, but it's also not. It's not the word fuck,
and it's not real swearing. Double dumb ass on you is not it's not swearing. And you know what we haven't touched at all? And I don't know if you were going this way. There was no need for 7 of 9 to be in this show at all. It was forced. I thought it could have been great. And this is where, to Mark's point before, is the show then took this awful turn of, and now 7 of 9 is here, and now suddenly Jerry Ryan can act. Look, Jerry Ryan's trying hard to emote. And you could tell this is totally putting Jerry Ryan in, was totally because they had her on a contract for another CBS All Access show.
Mark, I know you're taking it all in and silently judging us.
Yeah.
And, much like our ape overlords. And by the way, I meant to mention in the intro that if you're as much of a fan of Planet of the Apes as all of us nerds are of Star Trek, make sure you check out Podcast of the Apes, which you can just Google that and you'll find it. And it's still going, right? You find new ape content to talk about.
Yep. Right now I'm doing my coffee and quarantine commentary episodes. So revisiting the old classic TV show.
As we're talking about all the supporting cast, what were some of your thoughts, Mark? Did anybody stand out that you liked?
I am looking forward to the next movie, Quarantine of the Apes, though. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
To jump back to the supporting cast, actually, I thought Laris and Zhaban, the 2 Romulans that lived at Chateau Picard, were the 2 strongest ones on there.
Yes,
agreed.
And I don't know if you recognized Laris, Christian, the female one. Mm-mm. She's an actress that was in one of our favorite sci-fi franchises, but she was. It took me an episode before I realized she was Walter Bishop's wife and Peter Bishop's mom on Fringe.
Oh, wow. No, I did not recognize her at all. But
it bugged me for about a week, but before I figured it out. But I thought they were the 2 strongest ones.
I agree,
but Raffi, the problem with her, 90% of her backstory, you would have to have read this book. And
which, of course, you have.
What
do you got there?
These comics. They are, basically these tell the whole backstory of how they met. She was right when the Picard is captain of the E. They get news that the sun's going supernova over Romulus. Starfleet gives Picard a field promotion to admiral. He gets a new starship, and Picard gets to pick his crew. And that's when they introduce Raffi. She's first mate on another ship. She's due to her 5-year mission's up. She's due to go home to her husband and son. They're all excited. They're communicating through Starfleet channels. And then Picard comes up and says, hey, I'm going to offer you to be first officer on my ship in this historic mission. And she chooses to go with him instead of back to her family. And that pretty much wrecks her. All this backstory, you kind of had to read beforehand.
Yeah, you know, Star Wars does this too a lot. I don't like when there's homework, when there's like take-home study that after the movie or between episodes, I'm supposed to read a book or 3 comics. I would love to have the time to. I'm sure that. Did you enjoy those that book and those comics you read?
Yeah, they were actually really good.
Yeah, I'm sure they're great. I would love to have time to read them, but
the comics actually tell the story of how he meets the 2 Romulans. They're Tal Shiar agents, and so that's a pretty good little comic series. But you know, that's where all of her backstory was. Then after reading that, then watching her on the show, it's like, oh, kind of all her interesting stuff was back then.
Yeah.
I kind of
you know what that comic was? That comic was all of the scenes they wanted to put in Star Trek Picard, but they couldn't get Patrick Stewart to put on a uniform for.
Right.
If they want to put a Tal Shiar show on PBS Kids, Christian and I will have plenty of time to check.
Yeah, exactly. As long as it's for the demographic of like 4 to 7, then we'll be able to see all the spinoff. Yeah, if that Lower Decks series ends up being on the Nick Jr. app, I think my kids might watch it.
Have you seen the animated short treks? That's another insult to our childhoods.
I haven't seen an animated short treks. No, I've seen the live action ones, but I didn't even realize that was a thing.
What was the space worm that makes the Discovery travel all around? The tardigrades. They have a tardigrade. I mean, one of them with the least insulting one is there is a tardigrade that is on the ship during the Space Seed episode. Oh, and it's like, ooh, look at me, whoop, and then it gets sucked into a vent, and it's completely slapstick. It's Warner Brothers. It's a Warner Brothers cartoon on the Enterprise.
This sounds so bad that I'll have to stay up a little late and actually watch this. So that's on CBS All Access, the animated short treks with the tardigrades.
Yes.
They should have like the Enterprise computer voiced by Mel Blanc, you know, when you tell it. Instead of you know, Roddenberry's wife, used Mel Blanc.
Right. So Mark, back to the characters that we saw on the screen. Did you? And we're talking about the new characters for a moment. Did you feel a connection to any of them, or was it really you could take or leave any of them?
I thought Rios. I kind of liked Rios. The emergency holograms after 1 or 2 episodes that got old.
Yeah.
Dr. Agnes Girardi. The episode that ended with her killing Maddox, I'm thinking to myself, like, oh my God, she's like, this whole Ditz thing is an act and she's a cold-blooded killer. I was like, oh, wow. And then next week, it's like, no, she's just.
No, she just
threw up cake. She's really that.
Yeah, the next episode, she spent throwing up cake, basically. So, that just told you, like, no, that was just a moment that they were really excited about in the writer's room. And
there's a lot more puking on shows I've noticed in the last few years. I don't know
Maybe it's because of the quality of the shows. The actors
CBS All Access, F words and puking.
You know which episode I liked? Elnor. I thought that was the beginning of, because I think it was true to what I found great about the first 3 episodes was Picard was the guy who was trying to forgive the enemy.
Yeah.
And he was the guy trying to help he almost was like it was almost like he was a Christian missionary, or he was a missionary trying to save these homeless people. And the Elnor episode was great. I think him dropping the ball with Elnor was a good episode, a good thought. And I like the idea of a passionate Romulan with candor as a contrast to the Kholinar, stone cold emotionless Vulcan that we all grew up with. And then that's another one, they kind of just let that fizzle.
Yeah, but you're right. For the most part, I did think that was a good character. I think they did decent with him, but like with everything, it's sort of, he kind of got left hung out to dry. But I did think that the introduction of that character was good, and I actually hadn't thought about the show in a while. I kind of forgot about him, and that's kind of the fault of the show. That
he was I think the favorite supporting character of mine, but you're totally underutilized. But you could play him as a great action character because he's got all this training, but then he can also be comedic relief because he's like, oh, we're that's a lie, and he didn't understand that concept. So it was, I would say if that's a character going forward, I'd be interested in seeing more of. It would be him.
Yeah, he'd be the only action figure of the new characters that I would buy. I think. I don't know about you. I don't know about you, Mark, but that's the one that I think would be cool because he'd have a cool weapon.
He'd have a sword and everything. Yeah.
Let's talk about returning characters. I thought it was great to see Hugh again. I thought that was an interesting look at that character. But also, anybody that has talked to me about Star Trek knows that Voyager is still, by the way, even after this, Voyager is still my least favorite Star Trek series. Although Enterprise is really close at this point. But in any case, so I didn't need the return of 7 of 9. I did find it to be interesting. I thought that her story, her arc was interesting. I thought that they gave her some interesting things to do. So I was okay with it. But like when I saw her in the trailer, I was like, well, who asked for that? Who's like, well, we need to have 7 of 9 in it. Whereas we still didn't get Geordi or Worf. I mean, come on. Like, what are we?
Actually, here's a question for you. Do you think, too, to your point of not enough next generation background characters, do you think Picard's Doctor from the Stargazer was a scene written for Gates McFadden, who played Beverly Crusher, the Doctor from the Enterprise D?
Yeah, I didn't even think of that, but yeah, maybe she just, the price
and it was
point,
a throwaway scene she didn't want to do, or a price point.
It probably was like, well, I'm going to do one scene. Here's my price, and they're like, no. Yeah. But so obviously, I loved visiting the Riker family. That was one of my favorite episodes. And the joke that got me in trouble on the after show, but I said the same thing to Mark watched, so he knows what I said. But I even said this to Tom after I watched it. Was I don't know how they found a uniform that would fit Riker at this point in his life, but they somehow did, because I mean he's not in military shape. Let's just put it that way.
Well, he was never that thin, or as didn't.
Well, I mean, look at the pilot. Look at if you look at Encounter at Farpoint, he's.
But I mean, by season 5 on, you can tell. I mean, he was not really probably in the best shape.
But look, that just meant that he was positioning himself to be a Starfleet captain, because obviously weight fluctuation is what gets you into that chair, or makes it so you have trouble getting out of that chair.
Personally, I was going to say, I think that seeing Riker was the high point of the season. Like, it's funny because I don't know anybody who, for Next Generation, like Riker's their favorite character. But watching this, like, I know he does a lot of directing, but it's like he can still act. Like, he just smiles and he's just very charming, Jonathan Frakes, and you just feel very happy to see him. And even when he came back at the end, I'm like, I could go for a Riker show. I know he'd want to direct it and do all this other stuff. And then they'd fill it too much up with his little girl who plays bow and arrow all the time. And he's like, I don't want to see all that stuff. But I loved seeing Riker, and I want that show now, but it won't.
And to your point, Jason, you hit this point before, where they just jam in too much. And that's a Kurtzman problem. That's been a problem with all of the JJ verse movies, and it's a problem with Discovery. Is, okay, we saw the Rikers, that should overwhelm you. Okay, they have a daughter with a bow and arrow, okay, but then she also speaks a secret language of a son that we never cared about and never met, who died. I think it was just, and it was too. I got a kick out of the daughter talking about Data. I got a kick out of the daughter and Soji's relationship. But then and then they're like using words. They're already in a universe where they're using made up words. To use made up words that mean made up words where, am I making sense on that? It got too far.
And once again, the universal, maybe that's the only way to get around the universal translator, which for some reason doesn't exist anymore on the show. But
Well, they didn't buy the extended warranty on it. What did you think, Mark, about all of the familiar faces that we got to see on this show?
That was one of the things I liked. Well, the Troy and Riker scene was what I really liked. I thought after the first episode, 7 of 9, I was never a big Voyager fan. So if I didn't see 7 of 9 after that, I wouldn't have really cared. I would have liked to have seen Geordi. I would have liked to have seen anybody from Deep Space Nine, which they kind of left out.
Yeah, I like
jam a lot in there.
There were no Ferengi on this show.
Sirach Lofton wanted way too much to be.
Well,
He wanted double Gates McFadden's asking price.
Well, I was going to say, I would have been just as excited to see Chakotay as I was 7 of 9.
But I don't know what world you live in. I'm not a big Voyager fan, but I mean, everybody's like, oh, we got to look at Jerry Ryan. Oh, yeah, that's a terrible thing. I mean, put Jerry Ryan in anything. I don't care.
But you know what it was? Again, it goes back to my point. It goes back. Actually, she's beautiful now. I enjoy. But she's easy on the eyes. She's aged better than Jonathan Frakes, to your point. But with Jerry Ryan, did 7 of 9 need to be an emotional action star living as a Romulan cowboy? I mean, it was just, again, they jammed so many things that you're supposed to remember. They undid the neutral zone, but there is still apparently Romulan space. So why is there no neutral zone? I get, it was just, again, it was too much, with her running around shooting everybody. I loved when she interacted with the Borg cube. That was a great scene.
I thought that was cool.
And to Mark's point from the beginning, the problem was they went from a tender, beautiful old man Picard, and then suddenly we're addressing things we should have addressed after first contact. Like, I feel the calling of the Borg. Do you ever feel human again? Like, those were great lines, but it was a complete departure from the first 5 episodes. Like, it became you're right. I actually, how about this for me conceding something? I could have watched an entire Trek series with Jerry Ryan and Patrick Stewart, but it wasn't written well. But there's just so much extra stuff. Do I have to see the Romulan with the swords? Or am I, and the last 3 episodes, the last episodes when they finally got to this planet, it was just stupid. Mm-hmm. It was bad Star Wars. It was, by the end, it was bad Star Wars. It was not Star Trek.
The final scene is
Star Trek.
The final scene is basically the rise of Skywalker with the fleet showing up. And
Palpatine was behind the whole thing. That'll just be the whole. Yeah. It's funny. This is side note, but we watched the new trilogy with my 5-year-old, and when we watched Rise of Skywalker and Palpatine came back, my 5-year-old said, why did they have to use the old emperor again? And I'm like, even a 5-year-old understands this. This is amazing.
I disagree, and this is where I want to see if Disney just does Star Wars Episode 7, the redo, where they say, you know what, we had the right characters, and this is another problem with JJ. They had the right characters. They threw out throughout the thing. They threw out things people wanted to see, but they didn't have the emotion attached with it that you wanted. Like, I actually got a kick out of Rey on Tatooine. I got a kick out of the romance she sort of had with Finn that sort of disappeared after Episode 7.
Yeah.
And you know what? I yelled out, I actually sent a tweet, J.J. Abrams, F you, when they killed Han Solo. But I felt something in that movie. Then by Last Jedi, it was all the gimmicks they thought America wanted to see. Look, we have empowered women now. And I love empowered women movies. You see, I knew one of you was going to do that to me. But it was done badly.
We're talking Star Trek and Star Wars. We don't want to talk about women. No, but we can easily do an hour and a half on The Last Jedi, and we have.
No.
Yeah.
So, but you can tie up your point.
And tying up the point is, the last episode was just jamming in things that I think somebody who read the Star Trek encyclopedia thought we would want to see. That Sutra, I think, was I've been Googling Sutra. And then we have one android who looks like Data with the green skin. Doesn't that make sense? Don't you enjoy that? It became, my problem with Picard became, they just started jamming in things that non-nerds thought we wanted to see.
Yeah.
And my favorite side story, I don't think I've ever told Christian, was my problem with Star Trek Voyager was it became jamming in things that ordinary executives thought we nerds wanted to see. And I eventually met a woman who was a writer or an assistant writer on Star Trek Voyager, and she did sales at my gym in New York City. Like, she was the salesperson at my gym in New York City. And that sort of summed her up, and it summed up a lot of the writing. There were, though, however, great episodes of Star Trek Voyager. I just didn't see any of that energy in Star Trek Picard.
Yeah.
One thing that I think they missed huge, and you brought it up, was I thought this is where they're going to go when 7 of 9 plugged into the Borg Queen portal, and she was like, "I'm scared. I won't want to let go of that power." I think that was a great thing they could have explored, and all of a sudden she doesn't let go of the power, and she just kind of gets sucked in, like the One Ring on Lord of the Rings, type thing.
Yeah.
The Borg cube kind of does that to her, and then they'd have to sort of either rescue her or disconnect her, and then, she turns into a villain at that point. But there were many things they set up where I'm like, this is great to explore, but then it was just, we got to move on because we've only got 10 episodes to do this, and we wasted the first 5.
And the easy one on that is the Borg cube crashed on a planet, and they didn't show any of it. They're like, oh no, it's here now. Like, even the effects got lazy at the end.
Yeah.
Like, a friend of mine who's a graphics artist made fun of the fleet coming in to save the day at the end. Was they just redesigned one new starship, kept it really small, and then hit copy paste 50 times.
Mark, you were trying to jump in before. What were you?
Well, my nitpick on the Borg cube thing was after she took over and they tricked her and they sucked all the Borg into outer space and she started mourning their loss. Did they forget that the Borg can survive in the vacuum of space? I kept waiting. I was like, wait a minute, don't you remember First Contact? Just go scoop them up. They're fine.
Shit.
They're still alive.
Wait.
You just blew my brain, Mark.
First of all, I didn't think of that, but did they just assume because those were the Borg that didn't have the implants taken out, right? Those were the ones that were sleeping, basically, right?
Yeah.
So I could see that, if like Hugh got sucked out into the vacuum of space, I could assume that, or even 7 of 9 possibly. So I could have seen that, but yeah, you're right. So they're just like, no, they're all dead. Well, that's the thing is they don't expect that people will remember as well as you do, Mark, because none of us thought of that unless you did, Jason. But Tom,
I didn't until just now, but that does make sense. But
they also spent the whole season drilling on our heads how the Romulans, they're the refugees of the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
They're sprinkled out. They don't have a home planet. And then at the end, all of a sudden they have this fleet of like 300, 400 ships. And it's like, wait a minute, where they don't have a home planet. Where are these coming from? Why they don't seem to be that bad a shape? It's like if you had a friend who's
they got made on Exegol. We know this. They got made on Exegol.
Oh yeah. But it's like if you had a friend that kept borrowing money from you, and then you find out he owns a Mercedes. Right. Like what? Wait a minute. Why are we supporting you? You guys have a lot going on.
You know what? Yeah. And even from a writing standpoint, what I found the 300 ships was lazy on both ends. You got to remember Star Trek. The Wrath of Khan, the best Star Trek movie of all time, was just 2 spaceships. There were 2 models in that, and Regula 1, 3 models in the whole damn movie. That's all you needed, and I think that it would have been more dramatic if it were Commodore O's ship, and then a Riker ship came up and it was slightly bigger.
Yeah, no, you're right. They think that we need everything to be on that scale at this point. And, when we were talking before about how much we enjoyed seeing Riker, I enjoyed that moment so much that I had to just overlook the improbability that he would have re-enlisted and been in charge of that fleet. There's so many things that are logically like, though that would never have happened, but it was still great to see.
The pizza wasn't even cold yet.
No.
Well, I'll be honest. I did not like, for as much as I actually enjoyed Counselor Troy staying behind. It was so well acted. I'm not as tough as I used to be.
Yeah.
That she's a mom. She doesn't want her kid to get hurt was beautiful. But I never saw Riker letting Picard go into that alone. And I did enjoy his line, "What do you think? I was going to stay in space making a pizza?"
Yeah. Yeah. And
that did at least buy back my love.
yeah, no. I agree with that sentiment. And yeah, look, there's a lot of mixed emotions when it comes to this, and you're able to shrug off some of it because it was cool to see and it was fun. Let's talk about a new character we've barely touched on, who kind of the whole show is about, which is Dodge slash Soji. And I had to look up the actress's name. Her name is Isabella, but she goes by Isa Barones, and she's 21, so we can all feel great about that. But
that just ruined the mood.
I thought that's why I said it, because I can see your childhood bedroom behind you. I see your bed back there. So in fact, I also see a tissue box. I'll just leave it there. But
so
anyway,
she's 21, and now joining the Bladcast, David Buczynski. What do you think? No.
So
turning the video off now.
What did we think of this character and the importance of it? I think as a story point, it is interesting to sort of have this synthetic person who's basically sort of a sleeper agent. I want to start with you first, Mark. What did you think of her? You can also talk about her acting if you want, but about the character and also how she was written into the story, Mark.
I mean, it was okay. She was one of those middle of the road characters for me. Once the season ended, though, now that she's alive, or she's survived and apparently coming back to season 2, it seems like they're really going to have to stretch to get her, I don't know, some point to her character, because now she's just now the other artificial person that's on the ship now along with Picard.
Yeah.
So she's not really that special anymore. So I didn't hate her, but I wasn't like a huge fan. When she was on the cube, the whole scenes with her and Narek were just, I don't know. I was not.
He might. I don't know. It's so hard because I hate Raffi so much, but he might be my least favorite thing about the show. He was awful.
Yeah.
I hated him so much. He was an awful actor. He looked too much like Ethan Peck as Spock from the second season of Discovery. It was like the choice of casting that guy, having him have that beard. I'm like, great. That's the way you had Spock look on Discovery. So yeah, their interaction was painful to watch. And when you take into consideration that she's literally 3 years old, then you're like, all right, that must be why she's able to fall for these lines that this, by the way, not particularly suave nor sexy Romulan is feeding her. She just doesn't know better.
He was, I don't know if you ever saw Penny Dreadful, but he played Dr. Frankenstein on Penny Dreadful, and he kind of had this creepy stalkery thing for Billy Piper on that show. Okay. And I was like, okay, well, let's see what he can do on Picard. He kind of seemed like the same slimy, creepy guy, except now he's just chasing after an android rather than a woman he brought back from the dead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, there's the creepy factor to it, but I guess, let's not judge. What did you think, Jason, about the synthetic twins who, it's really just Soji?
Yeah. My first thought, I kept watching the show. I'm like, is she Asian at all? I can't tell. But other than that,
I don't think so. Actually,
I don't think so. She just kind of.
I think she's Hispanic. I think South American.
Maybe, yeah. But beyond that, as far as the story goes, I just think we went from this world where Data was like the state-of-the-art android that they couldn't even replicate him, and he was like every planet they went to. Everybody was so blown away by him.
Yeah.
To the point that 30 years later, they could make people that were so real that even like a sensor scan wouldn't tell you that they're not a real human being. And then they give Picard a life. And it just sets up a world, I think, where if you think about seasons going forward, Picard's never going to be in danger from now on, because they can just always, we'll just give him a new body, and so you kind of cheapen the stakes, I think, going forward at the end of this, because anybody dies, you just transfer their consciousness to a new body. That's exactly like their old body. And it almost would be like that Tom Cruise movie where he gets killed and he just comes back again, So
Edge of Tomorrow,
or all 6 seasons of Battlestar Galactica, the remake on Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah,
I'm just going to download into my new body.
Right.
Right.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, well, for the Cylons, yeah, that's what they were able to do. Yeah. So I mean, I think it definitely, look, having that be the end game, that Picard ends up in this synthetic body, and they're like, "Don't worry, we didn't give you any powers," which they might as well have just gone wink, because like there's going to be something. And maybe it's that he can brew his own tea with his hands now. I don't know
what
it's
they should do is actually give him the Logan Wolverine adamantium stuff, and that would really good.
I think that's what's missing. And then it's also like, don't worry, you're still gonna die kind of when you should have died originally, because he's like 95. It was like, I would be like, no, you should have given me like another 100 years. That would have been great. Like, I don't want to die in 10 years. Well, I just died.
I don't know if people remember this, but this was one of many problems I had with this Picard thing. But there was a season 7 Next Generation episode called Inheritance, where we meet Data's mom, and it was the exact same thing. It was Dr. Soong had his wife was dying. He designed this perfect android body, transferred her conscious in it. She didn't know she was an android. You do the scan, you would never know. So when they got to the planet, and I could see that's where they were headed, there was no reference to that. I assume her son, Dr. Soong's son, apparently he didn't realize that had happened to his mom. And the only reason they even found out was there was a rock slide and it knocked her arm off or something. So I'm assuming maybe sometime next season, Picard's, going to get his head knocked off, and Rios is going to have to carry it around in a bag or something. But
they'll get it sewed onto a battle droid. Yeah. So
that episode will be called Picard's head in a duffel bag. So I think that'll probably be.
Or it'll be like C-3PO, and they could put him in a backpack, and his arms and his legs all out of control, and he's like, Rios, get me back.
Raffi can actually wear him on her back. And JL, which is also, we touched on it briefly, that anybody who watched the AfterBuzz show I did, just every time she called him JL, it just I was just like, you don't know him like that. Stop it.
Right. If only you'd attached my legs, I wouldn't be in this ridiculous position.
Exactly. So as we start to wind down, because we've already talked about this for an hour, we could easily talk about it for another hour. Let me ask you first, Tom, sort of your thoughts with the way that the season ended, heading into another season. What do you hope we get, and do you think we're likely to get to see some of the things that you're hoping for in a season 2 of Picard, which my understanding, by the way, is that season 2 of Picard is written. Obviously, things aren't going to production right now, but they were putting together, going back a few months, they were putting together the writer's room for season 3. So they probably have like a 30-episode arc that they're planning on telling here. But what are your thoughts for season 2, Tom?
I don't know if you're going to get me right away on season. I don't know if you're going to get me right away on season 2 of Picard. The season finale of Picard was so bad, all of my enthusiasm for the project has been sucked out of it. It is like in Star Trek Insurrection, when the joystick jumped out of the floor and it was the emergency manual steering column. I said, they have run out of ideas. And then I didn't rush to see Nemesis, which was an okay movie. And that's another one that gets better with time, but still isn't great. I think the last 10 minutes of Star Trek Picard killed every redeeming value and everything I forgave about Star Trek Picard. The only thing keeping me excited about Star Trek Picard season 2 is that Patrick Stewart went on The View and asked Whoopi Goldberg to be a part of it. And the difference between Whoopi Goldberg and most other actors you've seen on Star Trek is Whoopi Goldberg is a talented actress who asked to be a part of Star Trek. Everyone else is a talented actor who got discovered because of Star Trek, arguably. I mean, we could get into that.
No, I mean, that's an Academy Award winner who was like, you know what I would like to do is be on this show. So yeah, I can.
Yeah, and that's a true story.
Just to provide the background, you worked for a number of years doing audience warm-up at The View, so you know Whoopi a little bit. And there's great video that you posted of who did she introduce you to on the show?
Oh, she introduced me to Patrick Stewart, which, by the way, if I ever meet you again, Sir Patrick, none of this mattered. I was just kidding. Christian put me up to these opinions.
Yeah.
No, but it was. But to the Whoopi point is, Whoopi genuinely called up Rick Berman and Gene Roddenberry and asked to be on Star Trek. She was an actress who didn't need the job. And Patrick Stewart here likes the fans, but when he says I want to do Star Trek that isn't Star Trek, it just makes you go, then you don't want to do Star Trek. Let's go and do another Wolverine movie here. But
he can do that too, by the way. That's fine. I'm on board.
You know what I'm hoping? Maybe there'll be something silly, and there'll be a MacGuffin line of, it's okay, Patrick Stewart or Captain Picard, you are not in an android body. We just gave you a pill. Why couldn't they have just given him a pill? They could have fixed all the problems. Here, we got a
Lawrence
little pill.
Fishburne just shows up and does that.
Yeah, no, but something, we fixed your aneurysm. Why couldn't they have just kept the body? Because he's a beautiful actor. And I think they cheapened all of that. He was close to death. His scenes were beautiful. He should have gotten an Oscar for Logan. And I think elderly Picard in space, afraid of dying, was a great concept. That he was fighting his aeronautic syndrome was a beautiful concept, and I think they cheapened that. So I just hope that there's a magical undo at the beginning where they say it's not a robot body, it's your old body, and we just gave you a pill. And and that Whoopi, and that he has a beautiful scene with Whoopi where maybe he's chasing his past or something,
Or he could just step out of the Nexus for real. That would be the way to do it.
And then there you go. Nothing's happened, and we can go back to a proper First Contact with 21st century special effects. I'm with you.
There you
go. Mark, what are your expectations and hopes for a season 2 of Star Trek Picard?
Oh wow! Well, first of all, one of the creepier actresses on there was Commodore O.
Yeah, agreed.
What really bugged me about her was the way she would tuck her hair behind her ears. It would make her pointy ears stick out so that she looked like a cross between Yoda and an angry Chihuahua. I couldn't. Her ears just creeped me out. But anyway, that aside.
If I may add two things that bothered me were the Romulan Vulcan mind meld and then the android Vulcan mind meld.
Oh man, I actually forgot about those. Yeah, and we'll those infuriated me. So that was something that bothered you, just sort of on an aesthetic. But what else are you thinking about season 2, Mark?
I would love, if I don't think they're going to do it, but I would love for Picard to get I liked Old Man Picard. That's what I tuned in for. And when they gave him the new body, it was like, okay, that's great, but you still have 79-year-old Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart playing this.
Right.
You're not gonna. It's not like he's gonna do anything different. I kind of liked him walking around with his aches and pains. It really humanized the character.
Sure.
But story-wise, I have a feeling it's just going to be a continuation of the Romulan conspiracy. I would have liked to have seen something a little different. But and maybe dump, and again, they won't do this, drop a few of the not so great supporting characters, maybe build up the crew of the La Sirena, because at this point it looks like we're going to stay on the La Sirena for another season. Yeah. I don't know why. I would love it if you just go back to Chateau Picard for a while, see number 1, hang out with the more interesting characters of the Laris and Siobhan.
If you had to stay on La Sirena, Mark, who would you drop?
Oh, Agnes right off the top.
Yeah. I'd push her out into space. Yeah.
Raffi pilots it, so you kind of have to maybe, if they got a new pilot, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, they got other pilots. It's fine.
Write her a little better, maybe. Drop the JL, but I don't think that's going
anywhere.
Rios'
ship, so he probably should be there, but maybe the emergency medical hologram breaks and he can only be one character now.
Oh, I would love that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would love that. So that's kind of what I would like to see, something a little different, rather than, it looks like this is, because I think they said they're shooting for a 3-season arc on this, and I think it's going to be 3 seasons and done is what they're hoping for. So it just feels like this is going to be one long story stretched out over 3 seasons.
I mean, look, Patrick Stewart would probably be like, 83, 84 by the, so that's probably about what you're going to get. And I don't know, I think that's fine. Jason, your thoughts after the ending of Picard season 1 about season 2, and what would you most like to see?
I think Mark is quite right. Before I was going to say, I said, as far as this crew on the ship, they just need to Jar Jar them or Rose them like they did on Rise of Skywalker. Just be like, the next. They're all kind of hanging around at the beginning. Oh, remember that fun time we had? And I'm here at Chateau, and now my new adventure is going to start. And they're all just like, all right, see you. We're going.
I've got a really important message. Sorry, I've got a really important mission for the three of you, but it has to happen off screen.
Right, exactly. So
Riker, go make a pizza.
So I don't think that's going to happen. It should.
Going to deliver pizzas for Riker's Pizzeria, where he's going to be the chef on the box with the little smile face.
Right.
You deliver at warp speed in 30 parsecs or less.
Yeah, I do think they need to probably, realistically, I know it's not going to happen. As far as characters I'd like to see go, I don't like Rios. As much as you hate
Rafi.
As much as you hate Rafi, I hate Rios. So,
I don't love him.
I'm saying, it's like, Rafi's like a 2 and everybody else is a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10.
By the way, if none of the supporting characters are back in season 2, that'll be fine. As much as I found Elmore interesting, that'd be fine. I'd be like,
this break my heart.
Elmore would probably be my 4 or 5 on the list of scale of 1 to 10. So I like him.
Yeah.
I'm calling him Elmo for a week, by the way.
Well, I have a friend named John Elmore, and we always call him Elmore. So I always want to call him Elmore with an L.
Yeah, that's all right.
But realistically, they won't do that. So I think what they're going to need to do after all this debacle, if they just drop this whole, there's a planet of, robot people that we can't tell who is and who isn't synthetic, and it's just, that they kind of have loyalties to this whatever was coming through that portal. I mean, it's almost like, at the end of Best of Both Worlds, not Best of Both Worlds, the Q-Who, the first Borg episode, when they, then they were like, well, we got away. And it's like, but now they know you exist, and they will be coming. I mean, there probably has to be something like that they know there's this huge threat of something that could, they know these people exist now. So they're going to need to follow up more on that and kind of still hopefully make them a threat and not just be like all synthetics are allowed now. And they tried to kill us originally, but now, they changed their mind. So we're all good with them.
I mean, just forgive and forget. Everything's fine.
Right.
Well, I'm looking forward to it because in the sense that I want to see what they do. Are they going to learn from season 1? Are they going to make it better?
Right.
I think the three of you don't necessarily agree, but you do all know that I really enjoyed Star Trek Discovery, and I thought season 2, adding Captain Pike, just sort of added this dynamic that made me really like season 2. So I'm looking forward to season 3, which I don't know if you guys have had the chance to see the trailer. There's not much to it, so it's not really a big deal if you haven't. But so finally we're at least getting to see something. I don't know that I needed this, so we're going to go like 1,000 years in the future, but we'll see if they do anything interesting with it. So I will just ask each of you, will you have CBS All Access when Star Trek Discovery returns to our screens? You first, Jason.
I will, because I found out that when I actually signed up for CBS All Access on a trial run to watch the first season of Discovery in one weekend, and then had since moved from Indy to Texas, and then signed up for CBS All Access legitimately here. For some reason, it still thinks I'm in Indy, so I can tune into the CBS in Indy here in Texas and watch Colts games. So that way I don't need NFL Sunday ticket anymore.
Okay, so when the NFL comes back in 4 years, you'll be able to watch it. Great.
Yes, I will be able to do that.
Mark, what about you? Are you going to sign up for CBS All Access so that you can check out Discovery as soon as it comes back?
Yeah, I probably will. I'm less excited about Discovery now that Pike, Spock, and Number 1 are gone. I'm not that. I'm kind of We'll see on Discovery season 3.
They really didn't do enough with Rebecca Romijn Mystique. I really thought that they could have used her a lot more. I would like more Number 1. I thought that those would have been some good short treks or something. But I don't know. I'm more intrigued for the sort of the blank canvas that they have now, because they're not pigeonholed into this like you're 10 years before the original series or whatever it was. But I don't know. It just means that blank canvas means that it could be a hugely disappointing canvas. I will, of course, be watching because presumably I'll be doing an after show for it for AfterBuzz. So that means I won't have to pay for it. So I'll be there. I'll be there for day one.
There's some plan that they were going to like try to go all Avengers on this, and there was going to be some series that was going to have like a crossover of Discovery characters and Picard characters. And
they're supposed to do a Star Trek Section 31 is development.
Mm-hmm. And so
and I thought that Michelle Yeoh was supposed to be on that, but then she went into the future with Discovery. So now I'm just confused as to what's happening with that. What about you, Tom? I know that you have well, I was going to say love-hate, but it's like hate/really hate relationship with Discovery. So are you all in for when it comes back for season 3?
Well, listen, CBS All Access has me because I crave reruns of Becker. And no.
My roommate in college played the guitar riffs in between each scene on Becker.
Great gig, by the way.
His dad wrote the theme song to Wings, so he has the nice.
Really? Jeez, you, God, I don't know. I my problem with my college was I was the most famous graduate they have.
Okay.
And that's just being here on this podcast.
I'm the number 3 famous. So my college has Rick Smits, the basketball player, Bill O'Reilly. Most people have heard of him, and then me. So
being from Indiana, I definitely have heard of Marist because of Rick Smits.
Yeah, because of Rick Smits. Rick Smits, who in a Marist uniform is in the film Coming to America. But anyway.
God, in the St. John scene, that's right.
Yeah, they're playing Marist,
In the face!
What do you think, Tom?
Listen, again, I think it all goes back to that great line from that Star Trek 5 review is, loving Star Trek means admitting half of it is crap. And in the Kurtzman universe, I will say loving Star Trek means admitting 3/4 of it is crap. And there is no great, the problem with Discovery was there's no great episode of, don't you understand the racism, Commander Spock? He is black on the left side of his face, and I'm black on the right. Boom. And then you're all floored with your own stupidity. Discovery had great moments. They had the first gay characters on Star Trek. If you got rid of Tilly, I would have liked it a lot more. And then people will say, oh, but you hated Wesley Crusher.
Boy, did I ever.
And Wesley had a couple of good moments too. I don't know. I didn't totally hate Wesley, but you're right. I was 12 at the time. So then you're right. 43-year-old Tom hates Wesley. They're going to get me for the money. I hope with Discovery, my problem with Discovery is it's supposed to take place after the fall of the Federation.
Correct.
And I think that is a complete violation of what Gene Roddenberry wanted Star Trek to be, which is the world will still be there and be a better place. And if you're now telling me the Federation we loved fell apart, it does suck a little bit of the fun out of it for me, but I'll be there. There are good characters on Discovery. I would love to see a Star Trek Pike's Adventures. I mean, the sets were gorgeous.
Yeah.
They had better casting on it. There is, Christian, a Short Treks episode.
There's one, right?
Where they're trapped on the elevator, and they're trapped on an elevator. It's a waste, but it's cool to see the uniforms.
So they basically put them in a Three's Company episode.
Exactly. But we'll see. I'll be there. I'll be there just because it's really my only way to get booked on the Black Cast. And
which that'll tell you how hungry Tom is for stage time, because there's no comedy being performed. That it's like,
it's been a lonely 60 days, my friend. Right now,
it's true. This is like the second time you've been on. This is like the second time you've been on in less than 2 months. So
yeah. Otherwise,
same with Jason, by the way. By the way, when you were talking about your one of your only vacations was a rainy vacation in Washington, D.C., you should watch the episode Jason was on about a month and a half ago, where he talks about deciding to drive from Austin to Los Angeles as quarantine started and nothing was really open. Like, they said Disneyland was closed. He was an hour on his way onto the trip and no Disneyland. So it probably would have felt like a Kelly family vacation.
Oh, Wally World is closed. Let me tell you, the minute things get a little bit less crazy, I am going to start driving to places where gigs are. Like I hear Florida will be the first one to open stand-up. I'm trying to get myself booked down there.
I ate inside a restaurant here in Texas this week.
Yeah.
So.
Now, can you? I don't want to spend too much time on this stuff, but can you eat inside the restaurant, or are they doing like a patio? Okay, because I had heard the first thing was patios, but
every other table had a social distancing. We were worried like going in that like our waiter would have like the ET outfit on, when they, but it wasn't. It was very normal actually.
Okay. Yeah. Well, look, we hope that everybody who's getting to go back to places is fun. Look, I just want to get a haircut, and I'm sure that none of you guys care about my problems with my hair.
No,
but
I want you to get a haircut more than you know.
But this damn hippie can really appreciate you guys taking some time to talk about this. This was fun. We'll have to find an excuse to get the four of us together again, maybe when Discovery comes back. And I can only hope that Tom hates it as much, because that's the fun dynamic. That's why I liked doing the AfterBuzz show, because Frank and I basically disliked every episode of Picard, and then the other two tried to find what they liked. And we're like, no. It really wasn't that good. But anyway, Jason, you've already tweeted this year, so you might not tweet again, but
I could try.
There'll be a link to this, so maybe you want to tweet one more time at
Jason, maybe I'll
Jason P. Blair.
Yep, it's my birthday on Sunday. It's great having a birthday on Mother's Day. Your wife really appreciates it.
Yeah, I'm sure that day's going to be all about you. And then Mark Coyne, COYNE Hunt. That's the @ on Twitter. You don't do Facebook. I mean, you don't do Instagram, do you?
No, I barely do Twitter, but
yeah. But it's just so that I can tag you in the episodes. But somebody who has all of social media buzz is Thomas J. Kelly. Where can people find you?
Oh, Tom Kelly Show on Twitter, Tom Kelly Show on Instagram, Tom Kelly Show on Snapchat, Tom Kelly Show on TikTok, Tom Kelly Show on Match.com.
There we go.
Beautiful.
That's called name squatting, boys.
And by the way, if there are any synthetic ladies on Match.com, Tom never said that he had any problem with synthetic ladies. So
damn straight.
If Soji has an older sister who's, not 21, but 26, then find Tom Kelly's show on Match.com.
She has in all fairness to me, and this would be my justification if for some reason she were to call me up, I'd be like, well, she did play a 26-year-old on Picard. That's fair game.
Yeah. Hey, that's fair. Yeah. Look, that's all you need. That's fine. Look,
she played a doctor.
You've got three guys who have been married for a long time here, the other quadrants of this. So we're all in favor of whatever rules you can use to convince yourself.
Listen,
we're all supported.
Listen, just so I don't scare the three listeners who listen to all 95 minutes of the Blackcast today, I promise you I would not be creepy. Natural selection would keep this from being an option. We're all safe, America.
Well, on that note, thank you so much to Tom, Mark, and Jason, and to all of you who enjoyed the Picard talk. Obviously, you can always keep in touch with the Blackcast at Blackcast on Twitter, BLADTCAST, Blackcast on Instagram, although I usually forget to post, blackcast.com. Tomorrow, we will wind down our big Blackcast binge week with our 5th of 5 episodes, which is one of 3 potential episodes that I might record tomorrow. So I can't really promote it, but it will show up tomorrow. Thanks again, everyone. And we will see you next time on the Blackcast.
Woo!
Yeehaw.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.